Tijuana, Mexico, on the border with the United States and close to the Pacific Ocean. It's one of the busiest border crossings in the world. Every day, 50,000 cars and 25,000 pedestrians pass through here. In addition, around 300 illegal immigrants from various Latin American countries cross the border daily, dreaming of a better life in the US. Most of the illegal migrants deported back to Mexico end up here, on the rubbish-strewn riverbed of the Rio-Tijuana canal. Almost all have the same wish. I want to go back to the other side, says this man. Nothing else. But you have to be careful they don't catch you when you cross. Next time there's fog, I'm gone. I'll go back to my friends in San Diego. The canal lies next to the border fence. It leaves a lasting impression on visitors to Tijuana. Around 2,000 deported people live in holes in the ground or crude shelters. No more welcome here than they were across the border. Virginia Sanchez lived happily in the US for years until authorities apprehended her. She was sent back to a country she hardly knew, with no money and no identity papers. They threatened me with a 5 to 20-year prison sentence if I tried to cross the border again, she says. What am I supposed to do? I really want to get across, but I can't. I want to hold my children again. I miss them so much, especially at night. Virginia has lived on the canal for the last 2 years. Drug addiction adds to her misery. Her children live with her sister in San Diego. She has no contact with them. Roberto Marquez grew up in San Diego. He became a father, but then he got into a fight and killed a man. He and his friend Gatito have lived here for the past 3 years, since Marquez was released from jail. He was deported without the chance to bid his son farewell. I was 18 when I went to prison, Marquez says. From 1979 to 2010. That's 31 years. But yes, I did kill the man. It's painful to say, he says, but it was a better life for me behind bars in the States than it is here with this kind of freedom. Just 100 meters away, there's another Tijuana. Close proximity to the US means jobs and industry. Young people are looking to earn and spend money. Plenty of them are successful. Bar owner Sergio Gonzalez says the spectrum of nightlife has developed enormously, from simple bars where workers go to high-end gastronomy. There's the art scene, he says, and the architecture. Tijuana is a young city and it's growing rapidly. In fact, the city's growing at a rate of 2 hectares per month. It's known for being home to businesses that make cheap goods by offering starvation wages. But now more high-tech products are being made, mostly for the American market. The head of the Industrial Association says that 4 years ago, drug violence overran the city. Today, it's a different story. People here have better opportunities than in other cities, he says. That's why so many people come to Tijuana. It's a challenge for the city. The development of infrastructure and social services can't keep pace. So despite all the growth, there have been some setbacks. Charities and the Catholic Church have stepped in. Every morning, Father Ernesto Hernandez offers breakfast to more than 1,000 deported illegal migrants. Without his help, some of the poorest people around the canal would starve. A healthy breakfast is important, he says, so that people don't have to steal and they stay healthy. With a little care, they can get back on their feet again. But most don't want to make lives for themselves in Tijuana. The people who eat here aren't interested in the nightlife or working in the factories. I'm from El Salvador, says this man, but they deported me to Mexico. The Americans just think, well, he's Latino. They don't care which country you're from. This man says the police took away his papers, so he's stuck here. Without them, he says, he can't go anywhere. I only met one person who wants to stay, Bruno Alvarez. Bruno is a great example, says Father Hernandez. He too lived in a hole in the ground at the canal, but he didn't give up and he kept looking for a chance to get out. He often had breakfast here, so I knew him and I knew he would be great for this project. Now he works and sleeps here. Bruno takes us back to the canal to show us how hard it is for the people who end up here and why so few make it across the border again. It's because of this fence, says Bruno. They put ladders up and climb over, but at the top they have to jump. Most of them injure themselves, they break their legs. And many die on the other side as they try to cross the desert. But the migrants aren't welcomed in Tijuana either. The stark poverty he shows us is proof of that. He came here after the American police took him from his house and deported him. He was taken away from his wife, his 2 daughters and his 2 grandchildren and found himself in Mexico, living in a hole in the ground. This is the hole where I used to live, he says, together with around 12 to 15 others. Whenever the police came, they would destroy what little we still had. Those who live on the canal hate the police. They say the city just wants to get rid of them. The chief of police points out that there's now a service in place to help them leave. The plan is that we ask the people to go back to their home countries, he says. After all, they all have relatives in other countries. We even pay for their travel. The state helps where it can, and we're only doing it in their interest. Victor Clark from the Binational Center for Human Rights says the authorities have sent in police with heavy machinery to destroy the homeless people's shelters. They took some of the residents away and locked them up, he says, only to let them go again a few hours later. To raise awareness of police brutality, some residents from the canals have set up a protest camp with the help of human rights organisations. They're demonstrating against unjust arrests, evictions and the fact that police consistently destroy their homes without providing an alternative. This man says that the canal residents must deal with huge injustices. They take our money, he says. They beat us and kick us out. Anyone who makes some money or receives some from his family often loses it to the police. Sociologists have begun to pay attention to the situation. Laura Velasco documents the stories of those who've been deported. This is a protest against the apathy of the authorities, she says. They haven't even managed to give these people a decent place to sleep. The city is leaving people who've been deported out in the cold. There are no social services here. Today, the sociologist wants to visit the canal residents to collect data, but she's received a telephone threat. The caller said that if she brought journalists to the area, something bad would happen to her. But she isn't convinced. I doubt that call came from the canal residents, she says. I've been doing this work for a long time. I've met with them alone and as part of a group. They trust me. No one has ever been aggressive towards me. That's why I can't believe that people from the canal would threaten to kill me if I came to see them. Around 2,000 people live on the canal. They're not wanted here. They don't want to be here. But they can't leave. They find themselves on the wrong side of the border, close and yet impossibly far from their American dream. The border crossing has become more and more dangerous. For many, trying to get to the US can prove deadly. And yet those who've decided to stay in Mexico remain the exception rather than the rule. I've noticed that over there I was nobody, says Bruno Alvarez. Now I finally have proper papers again, and suddenly I feel like I'm someone again. A Mexican. My life isn't here in Mexico, says Roberto Marquez. I still have a life in the United States. That's why I can never make a life here.